and it's most likely going to be yet again a Trump versus Biden rematch. Joe Biden has announced earlier this week that he is going to run in 2024, and Trump has already announced that he is running. Right now, he is the leading Republican candidate. What has changed between 2020 and now is that Donald Trump is an indicted former president, the first ever to have that ignominy. Will that make a difference to his voter base, or will that actually charge up his voter base? Will an indicted Trump be able to defeat Biden when an incumbent Trump could not in 2020? And how does America and its institutions protect the result of the next election without the losing side, whichever it may be, descending into violence like we saw on the 6th of January 2021? Michael Gerhardt is a distinguished professor of constitutional law at the University of North Carolina. He now joins me. Thank you very much, Professor Gerhardt, for joining us. On this whole Trump indictment, the first former president in the history of the United States in over 250 years to be indicted on criminal charges, what do you think the impact of this would be? Of course, it doesn't stop him from running again, but how do you see this playing out for Donald Trump? Would voters be skeptical of him because of these charges, or would his base actually be more enthused to come out and support him because they see this as part of some design, or he's being unfairly targeted, what have you?
Well, in the short term, I think this plays out pretty well for Donald Trump. He likes being a martyr. He likes sort of positioning himself as a victim and somebody who is always being targeted by the so-called left. And since the indictment that currently stands won't come to trial anytime soon, he's going to be able to run as a presidential candidate based in part on the fact that he's still a victim. Mm-hmm. In the long run, it could become a problem because he could be convicted. And at some point, if he's convicted under this current indictment or under some other indictment, that could pose a problem for Trump. He'll have opportunities to appeal, but if he loses those appeals, he will be in a position of being subject to going to prison. And his being a former president won't stop any of that.
So the response to this has also been on political lines. The response to this indictment, when you have potential GOP presidential candidates, Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, they've all criticized the indictment, saying that it is partisan. It was playing to a script. It was pre-designed. The Democrats, of course, have come out and welcomed it and said that this is yet another example of why Trump is unfit to run for office again. Is there a legal case? Because once again, because of the polarized times that America seems to be living in, is this legal indictment also being seen purely from a political or polarized prism?
Yes. And again, because as you have noted, we have a former president here who is the subject of that indictment, and a person who enjoys being in the spotlight and the center of attention. So if anything happens to that person, in this case, an indictment, it just feeds into his narrative of, as I said, of being a victim, but also allows him to go public and bash the government. The thing about an indictment is that it takes time for a criminal proceeding to unfold, oftentimes a year and a half to 2 years for that indictment to unfold, become a trial, if there's a conviction and an appeal. So during all that time, the Republicans can politicize it. But indictments are tried not in the court of public opinion, they're tried in the court of law. So whatever happens in public isn't going to influence or shape what happens in that indictment and subsequent criminal prosecution.
Let's talk about the People's Court, because now we have heard earlier this week that Joe Biden is going to run for 2024. Many are predicting that it's going to be once again Trump versus Biden. It's going to be a rematch from 2020. Do you think that's the most likely scenario that's going to play out? And one of the things that Biden said in his campaign video is that this is a fight for America's soul, for America's democracy. And he says the job is not done yet. Is that a message that will resonate with the American people? Because he said it in 2020. He won. The American people reposed their faith in him. But would they be willing to buy that message again? Because, as he says in that video, it's unfinished business, according to him.
Well, it's a really excellent question. And I guess that question will hang over the entire campaign. because, as you pointed out, that's what's at stake. For the Democrats, what's at stake is protecting democracy and protecting the rule of law. For Donald Trump and Republicans, it's apparently upsetting the system, allowing for preferred treatment for people who happen to be Republicans and demonizing Democrats. That's what this election will be all about. But in the long run, I think President Biden is right, because this is a fight over America's soul, and each side has a different conception of what that soul happens to be.